Hey everyone, I'm Liz Ferry, and I'd like to welcome you to the first episode of my Crochet Lessons series. In this episode, we'll be going over in detail all of the materials you'll need to start crocheting, as well as some things to bear in mind before you begin. There are only a few things you'll really need to begin to crochet, especially if you're a complete beginner. First of all, you'll need yarn. Don't use anything too expensive or high quality if you're just starting out. A good bet is a basic acrylic yarn. Red Heart Super Saver is a good option because it's inexpensive and has a ton of variety of colors and textures, but some people find it too rough. I've never had problems with it, so it mostly depends on the person. You might have more or less sensitive skin. Remember, to crochet, you basically have to rub this stuff over your fingers over and over again. If you get something that's too rough, it could rub your skin raw. Another option would be to get an inexpensive soft yarn like Caron Simply Soft. Or if you like soft pastel tones, you might want to try a cheap baby yarn. Some people have trouble seeing their stitches when using darker color yarns, so you might want to avoid darker shades anyway. Another thing to consider is the weight of the yarn you're getting. I don't mean the total weight of the ball of yarn you get, but the weight of the yarn strand itself. Lightweight yarns will be thinner, while heavyweight yarns are thicker. Lace weight is the thinnest type of yarn, and is mostly used for, you guessed it, making lace. Superfine weight is next, and is also known as sock or fingering yarn. This type is used for delicate items like shawls or socks. Fine weight is also known as sport or baby yarn. This is another delicate yarn used for lightweight items like socks, but is just a bit thicker than fingering yarn. Lightweight is also called DK or light worsted weight. A lot of yarns come in this category. This type of yarn is useful for slightly heavier items like hats, scarves, and baby blankets. This is also the first type of yarn suitable for making amigurumi and other dolls. Medium weight is also known as worsted or Aran weight. This is my preferred type of yarn for several reasons. It's right in the middle as far as yarn weights go, which makes it very versatile. Because the yarn is thicker, it's a bit easier to see the stitches, so you can more easily see what you're doing without it being too thick. Also, I find this yarn is best suited for making amigurumi and other dolls, because the thickness of the yarn helps with tension. There's a lot less problems of gaps between the stitches with the filling popping out of the gaps than you would get with a finer yarn. And this is also by far the most common type of yarn you can find, and is available in a ton of different colors and textures. Bulky weight, also known as chunky yarn, is great for making larger pieces. This is because the yarn is twice as thick as worsted weight yarn, and works up really fast if you use a larger hook size. Also, because of its thickness, it's a lot easier to see what's going on, so this can be a good choice for a beginner as well. Use this yarn for rugs, sweaters, and blankets, or for making super cute but surprisingly quick hats, scarves, or cowls. Super bulky weight and jumbo weight yarn, also known as roving, are even thicker than chunky yarn, and are used for much the same things. Super bulky is just a bit thicker than bulky, and jumbo weight yarns are even bigger. They're both huge yarns that can easily be worked with your arms instead of a hook. You can make pretty much the same types of projects with these as you would bulky yarn, but if you want to make a gigantic rug or blanket in just a day, use a jumbo weight yarn. If you want to learn more about different yarn weights and their uses, I've put a link in the description. You'll also need a crochet hook. There's a ton of different sizes, shapes, and materials of crochet hook you can find at the craft store. When you're just starting out, a basic all-purpose hook is the best bet. Then you can grow your hook collection once you have a better idea of what your style is and what the best hook for your purposes might be. Choose a hook made of aluminum rather than plastic or wood, since aluminum can be used in a greater variety of ways. I prefer using an ergonomic hook like this one, which is made of aluminum with a silicone grip. The soft grip style handle makes it easier to hold and saves a lot of discomfort. These can be more expensive though, so if you're not sure if you want to make that investment right away, you can always use a plain hook. A lot of people say that an H-hook is the best hook for beginners, because it's not too small and not too big. Using a hook that's a little bigger when you're a beginner makes it easier to see the stitches of your work. You might need to use different sizes of hook, however, depending on the tension you tend to use when making stitches. Tension involves how tightly you tend to wrap your yarn around your hook when making stitches, and in some cases it can drastically change the size of your finished work. If you tend to crochet with low tension, you might loop the yarn too loosely around the hook, and you may need to use a smaller hook. If you tend to crochet with high tension, you might loop the yarn too tightly around the hook, and you may need a larger hook. Generally speaking, if you have a thicker yarn, you'll need a larger hook, and if you have a thinner yarn, you'll need a smaller hook. For amigurumi or other dolls, you'll need to maintain a higher tension, in which case you'll need an even smaller hook. I find that any hook between sizes B and F are suitable for making amigurumi using worsted weight yarn, depending on your tension. My favorite hook size is a size E. There are a couple of different ways to hold your hook that you may want to experiment with. The two most common are the knife grip and the pencil grip. but there are tons of variations, and you should experiment with whichever style feels most comfortable. Some styles of gripping your hook are harder on your wrist or on certain fingers. If you find that the way you're holding your hook doesn't feel right or causes pain, try to hold the hook differently. I've put a link in the description to where you can learn more about different grip styles and why you should use them. I personally use a variation of the pencil grip called the chopstick grip. I do mine slightly differently though. I like to hold it so the hook is pointed down, just because I find it more comfortable, and it feels like I have more control. I like this style of gripping because it's a more relaxed hold that doesn't place too much strain on any particular spot of my hands. You might need a yarn needle to sew in your ends or to sew different pieces together, like if you were making a doll or a piece made up of squares. A lot of people like to use these blunt-ended yarn needles, but I find that a darning needle with a sharp point is a lot better at sewing the yarn more securely together. But of course, if you prefer not to deal with the sharp end, just use a normal yarn needle. You can find these dull-tipped needles in either metal or plastic, and they can sometimes be found in kits. You probably need some form of stitch marker if you're a beginner. You can easily find stitch markers in stores, and they can sometimes come in kits. I never use them even though I have quite a few. I always use bobby pins because they're cheaper and, in my opinion, more efficient. Use whatever you feel most comfortable with though. You can use a safety pin or a paper clip or even a scrap of differently colored yarn. You'll need a pair of scissors. Any fabric scissors will work fine. And if you're making amigurumi or other dolls, you'll need some fiber fill to stuff your dolls. But wait, before you begin actually crocheting, it's important to bear in mind some crochet self-care. It can be easy to get carried away when learning a fun new skill, and if you aren't careful, this could result in discomfort or even injury. Don't strain your eyes by working in the dark. Make sure you're working in a well-lit room so you can see what you're doing. If you have a tendency to get migraines, like me, don't work in an outrageously bright area either, or the strain on your eyes from the light and from looking at your work will be a good recipe for one. Stretch out before, during, and after working on a project. Not just your wrists, hands, and fingers, but your arms, shoulders, neck, and back can become stressed from the repetitive motions of crochet. Even your legs and hips can get sore if you stay seated for too long. Keep your posture in mind. Try to sit in a chair that supports the weight of your arms and hands, or work at a table or desk to support your arms. Holding them up for long periods can lead to upper back, neck, and shoulder pain over time. It's hard not to hunch over your work, but every few minutes try to sit up straight and lengthen your neck and your spine. Stay hydrated and fed. It's really easy to get into a state of flow when crocheting, which can cause you to forget to take care of your body. Make sure to have a glass of water close by, and don't start working unless you've had something to eat. Take frequent breaks. Put down your hook, stand up, and walk around every 20 minutes or so. If you're having trouble with a part of your project, take a little break to keep from getting frustrated, and to get your mind off your project to look at it with fresh eyes later. If anything is starting to hurt, stop immediately and rest for a few hours before starting again. Be mindful of what your body is telling you. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give it a like and share it on social media. And if you'd really like to help out the channel, you can donate to my Patreon. You can get some pretty cool perks through Patreon, like seeing my videos early, access to some of my prototype patterns, and discounts in my Ravelry store, depending on your level of donation. You can find out more about that at patreon.com/fairyrings. You could also subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss the next episode of this series when it comes out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!